Act 2 of An Inspector Calls. At Rise, scene and situation are exactly as they were at the end of Act 1, when we finished off on our cliffhanger ending that created a climax. The inspector remains at the door for a few moments looking at Sheila and Gerald. Then he comes forward, leaving the door open behind him. Again we can see that the inspector makes an impression of massiveness through these stage directions. Despite the fact that we were told he need not be a large man, he does make his presence known, emphasising just how intimidating he is, and we can see that he is presented as an authoritative figure throughout this section. We can also see through this section, with Gerald and Sheila, that Priestley is using the inspector as a mouthpiece to voice his own concern for humanity and the idea of collective responsibility. Also note the timing of his entrance, the fact that he enters right as Gerald has confessed to Sheila. He says to Gerald, "Well," emphasising the fact that he expects Gerald to admit the same thing to him, and we get the sense that he is omniscient. He already knows to just what extent Gerald has been involved with Eva. Sheila laughs hysterically. "You see? What did I tell you?" Emphasising again that she is a very perceptive character. The inspector asks in a very grave, calm manner, "What did you tell him?" The stage directions emphasise Gerald's nerves with an effort. "Inspector, I think Miss Birling ought to be excused any more of this questioning. She's nothing more to tell you. She's had a long, exciting and tiring day." Here we can see gender and class issues. Because of Miss Birling's status as a middle-class woman and the fact that she is female, she is not expected to witness such things. In fact, it would have been considered impolite for her to remain in company as an affair and infidelity was discussed. This is shown through the triple long, exciting and tiring that emphasises what her role in society is. Note how he makes the reference that she has obviously had about as much as she can stand. You heard her, belittling her and pointing out that she is in fact hysterical, which would have been a common claim to put against females at the time, as they wouldn't have been treated with much respect. Sheila responds to this slight with the very matter of fact, "He means that I'm getting hysterical now," meaning that actually she is very logical and pragmatic. The inspector, however, questions her, giving her respect, saying, "And are you?" And Sheila replies with, "Probably." The inspector says, "Well, I don't want to keep you here. I've no more questions to ask you." We can see that he is happy to let her go, emphasising that he is also a fair judge of the Birlings. Sheila says, "No, but you haven't finished asking questions, have you?" Again emphasising just how sharp or astute she is. She's a perceptive character. We can also see her natural curiosity coming across here. She insists that she will stay, also emphasising that she is much more progressive than other females of the time. She doesn't want to stick to standard or prescribed gender roles. Gerald questions this. "Why should you? It's bound to be unpleasant and disturbing." Here we can see yet again gender issues, as Gerald believes that women should be shielded from unpleasant and disturbing things, or rather, that women of this class should be. The inspector is very quick to point out the gender and class issue raised by saying, "And you think young women ought to be protected against unpleasant and disturbing things?" Here we can see that he condemns Gerald for his belief that Sheila should in fact be shielded from such things, when Eva was not. This is a clear and deliberate tactic from the inspector asking this question, as he attempts to lead Gerald into a very successful trap of admitting that whilst he does believe this, it proves that young women like Eva should also be treated the same way, that they too should be protected from unpleasant and disturbing things. The inspector then catches him out by saying, "Well, we know one young woman who wasn't, don't we?" There's the distinction between gender and class here, and we can see that the repetition emphasises the class difference. Gerald responds with, "I suppose I asked for that," emphasising that he is also quite fair. Tension between Gerald and Sheila is shown through Sheila's snide remark, "Be careful you don't ask for any more, Gerald." Sheila also points out that she is interested in enlightenment. "It can't be any worse for me than it has been, and it might be better." Gerald, however, misinterprets this, further revealing tension between the two young lovers. "You've been through it, and now you want to see somebody else put through it." We can see Sheila's short temper when she says bitterly, "So that's what you think I'm really like. I'm glad I realised it in time, Gerald." When Gerald says, "No, I didn't mean," she cuts in. This shows that she's open to more modern beliefs about women and their role in society. And this is further reiterated through her confident statement, "Yes, you did," arguing back with a man who would have been seen as naturally superior. She also questions Gerald's motives. "And if you'd really loved me, you couldn't have said that." She's also very perceptive. "I must obviously be a selfish, vindictive creature," pointing out what Gerald's perception of her ought to be at that exact moment. If we skip down to when Gerald says, "All right then, I'm sorry," note Sheila's response, "But you don't believe me, and this is just the wrong time not to believe me." We can see here that she is incredibly honest, and she is also a very intuitive character, having knowledge of just exactly what is going to happen. She recognises the importance of honesty and also of making sure that everybody is in this together, already showing that she believes firmly in the idea of collective responsibility. Note the inspector and the stage directions surrounding him, massively taking charge. Here we can see that he interrupts, putting the pressure on Gerald to admit his role and Sheila to admit her role as well. He instantly gets the audience on side when he says, "I can tell you why Miss Birling wants to stay on, and why she says it might be better for her if she did. A girl died tonight, a pretty, lively sort of girl, who never did anybody any harm, but she died in misery and agony, hating life." Here we can see, through the emotive language, misery and agony, hating life, that he attempts to elicit sympathy or pathos for Eva Smith from the audience. He uses grim imagery, painting a brutal image of what exactly happened to Eva. The stage directions for Sheila's response show that she is distressed. This proves to us that she is genuinely annoyed by her role in Eva's suicide. "Don't, please, I know, and I can't stop thinking about it." The repetition here further emphasises just how genuinely affected she has been by her involvement in the girl's suicide. The inspector, however, ignores this. Now Miss Birling has just been made to understand what she did to this girl. She feels responsible. And if she leaves us now and doesn't hear any more, then she'll feel she's entirely to blame. She'll be alone with her responsibility the rest of tonight and tomorrow and the next night. Here we can see that the inspector is a mouthpiece for Priestley's own beliefs, and we also see the idea of responsibility. In particular, collective responsibility. Emphasising through the shared theme of responsibility his socialist beliefs. Note the triple tonight, tomorrow and the next night to emphasise just how genuine Sheila really is. Sheila responds with eagerly, "Yes, that's it. And I know I'm to blame and I'm desperately sorry. But I won't believe, it's simply my fault that in the end she committed suicide. That would be too horrible." Here we can see that through the word desperately, that she is genuinely sorry. We can also see that she is impressionable and easily persuaded, but she candidly accepts the guilt or blame bestowed on her. You can see through the use of punctuation and the caesural pause, the emphatic tone through those dashes. She also knows through "she committed suicide" that she's not entirely to blame. But she's also quite naive when she says that would be too horrible. especially when you compare this to what Eva Smith must have suffered. We can see here clearly that she is very much of a middle-class mindset. The inspector, sternly to them both, "You see, we have to share something. If there's nothing else, we'll have to share our guilt." The sibilant S sound emphasises just how authoritative he is and reinforces the socialist theme. He agrees that you cannot blame one factor for her death and that we are all interlinked, further reinforcing this idea of shared responsibility. The stage directions staring at him. "Yes, that's true, you know," and she goes close to him wonderingly. "I don't understand about you," revealed that she is a clever or perceptive person. This is the first hint that she knows he is not a real inspector. Note the stage directions, "calmly." This reveals that he is firmly and always in control. "There's no reason why you should." Note his calm, measured pace here. He regards her calmly while she stares at him wonderingly and dubiously. Again, these stage directions further reiterate just how in control he is. He is not fazed by the scrutiny of Sheila. Now Mrs. Birling enters, briskly and self-confidently, quite out of key with the little scene that has just passed. Sheila feels this at once. Here we can see that Mrs. Birling obviously knows the situation. She has been informed by her husband that there is an inspector who is questioning the family about the suicide of Eva Smith. She instantly enters, attempting to assert her authority. Also note that she has forced confidence because she knows what has happened. Mrs. Birling, smiling and social. Here the stage directions emphasise just how false she is, as this is entirely fake, purely to attempt to put the inspector at ease and manipulate him. "Good evening, Inspector." This is reiterated through her obviously fake tone, as she attempts to jovially make him feel at ease. The inspector responds with the very cool "Good evening, madam," obviously not swayed by her manipulative tactics. Mrs. Birling with the same easy tone. "I'm Mrs. Birling, you know. My husband has just explained why you're here, and while we'll be glad to tell you anything you want to know, I don't think we can help you much." We can see here that she is incredibly confident, but that this is forced confidence in order to manipulate him. And we can also see how dismissive she is of him, immediately representing to us that she will be in the exact same mindset of her husband, unwilling to accept guilt or responsibility. As this is the same way that Birling treats the inspector. Sheila responds with "No, mother, please," emphasising the age gap and the differing views of the two younger people, Sheila and Eric, that is directly juxtaposed with the beliefs of the likes of Mrs. Birling and Mr. Birling. Mrs. Birling, and the stage directions tell us, affecting great surprise. "What's the matter, Sheila?" Here we can see the false appearance that she puts on to make it seem as if everything is okay. Sheila, hesitantly, and this stage direction indicates tension. "I know it sounds silly." "What does?" "You see, I feel you're beginning all wrong, and I'm afraid you'll say something or do something that you'll be sorry for afterwards." This is proleptic irony, and the audience can anticipate that all will have secrets revealed under clever questioning of the inspector. But if Mrs. Birling immediately presents herself as morally superior or above all of this, she will have the furthest to fall. Again pointing out that Sheila is an incredibly perceptive character. Mrs. Birling is incredibly dismissive and patronising to her daughter, responding with, "I don't know what you're talking about, Sheila." And she immediately aligns herself as morally superior. Sheila is very quick to point out, "We all started like that, so confident, so pleased with ourselves, until he began asking us questions," again pointing out just how intuitive she really is. Mrs. Birling, looking from Sheila to the inspector, "You seem to have made a great impression on this child, Inspector." We can see through her language that she is demeaning, and she is patronising or belittling to her daughter, obviously not showing her the respect that a 20-year-old young lady or an early 20-year-old young lady should actually have bestowed upon her.